One question I had about, I guess based on feedback from people we've talked to about local investing who are new to it, and that's the question of liquidity. And so far, for example, in Oregon, there's no secondary market for these community public offering shares or securities. And so some people have expressed concern about that. What do you see in the future of that? Do you see state level exchanges popping up all over the US, or do you think it might take some other path?
Well, first of all, not all investments require a secondary market in the sense that loans, for example, are self-liquidating. The key question is, if an investor puts money into a business, right, how would that money come back? And the classic venture capital model is you invest in the equity, you hope that the company grows a lot, and then there is a liquidity event. Either it gets acquired by a larger company, or it goes public and does an initial public offering. So when we're talking about equity investments, that is one issue, which is a way in. If you don't expect this business to grow a lot and then be acquired, how would you see your money back? But not all investments are like that. For example, a loan is self-liquidating. So, as part of the contract, you'll see your money back eventually with an interest, right? So let's talk just about equity. What we found is that in order to alleviate that problem, people can be quite creative. And one way to be creative is to, for example, create preferred shares that get repurchased back with a percentage of the revenues, let's say, over time at a multiple. Let's say you're raising a certain amount of money, you sell the shares for $2 a share, and you're saying, I'm going to set aside 3 or 4% of the revenues every year to buy those shares back at $4 a share. And so you don't know exactly how long it will take for that investment to come back, but there is a liquidity built into it. Yeah. It's also true that if you go through a process like a DPO or a CPO, you can set up on your website a way for people to exchange those shares if they want to.
Right.
There's a way of registering the security so that it's not restricted and can be sold back and forth. The problem is that there probably isn't a lot of liquidity, meaning there aren't a lot of people that would be buying and selling. And so we probably have to start with a number of DPOs or CPOs that can be traded that way. And over time, maybe we'll develop enough activity to generate the need for a local exchange. But I think we are at least 5 or 6 years away from that.
Cool.
But there are other ways to think about liquidity and how to return the capital, even if you're raising equity type capital that does not require either a secondary market or a liquidity event.
Right. And I guess that answers my follow-up question, which was, the liquidity event, when you're talking in, I guess, some circles, they talk about exits. And we run into more and more smaller companies that don't have an exit strategy, and they intentionally don't have an exit strategy. So they could use some sort of, this buyback scheme or something like that to retain some form of liquidity without having to say that our goal is to be sold or something like that.
Right. And that's something that people need to be cognizant about, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, of course, the best form of capital is equity because it does not demand any payment, right? You might have a dividend down the line if you're profitable, but right? But if you also are not planning to sell your company in a couple of years, and a lot of small businesses probably we don't want them to sell to a larger company and then not be a local business anymore. Then you have to figure out a way to either institute a way for people to redeem their shares if they need the liquidity. So you could set something up where you can say in 3 years, we will buy back your share if you need to sell. Or you can have a bulletin board where people can trade with each other. Or you can have this, repurchasing structure in place where part of the shares are being redeemed on a yearly basis.